All right, who's here? Ted, that's me. Laura, Matt Casper, that's a good one. Neil, Richard, oh good, people are showing up. This is great. Thank you guys for being here. This is cool, this is cool. Wow, okay, good, good. We've got some people showing up. That was my biggest question, was like, will anybody care? Does anybody want to hear Tutor Ted's lessons of any kind, really? So yeah, we'll see how I do. And if it's good, maybe you'll come back tomorrow. And if it's bad, maybe nobody will be there. But hey, only one way to find out. I was gonna challenge myself to play a music video while we're waiting to get started. Just a little bit of inspiration here. Where is it? I just had it up. This is all my research. Here it is. Okay, cool. Little David Letterman here, real quick. Just a little bit here. Just a little bit. Oh, I gotta share the audio too. Share computer sound. Hopefully this is not too loud. Here we go.
There we go. Our next guests
This will be relevant, I promise.
are Fly, Fresh, Dope, and Fat. Their new CD, of which I have a copy right here, Ill Communication, entered the charts at #1. And now they're part of the big Lollapalooza tour. Ladies and gentlemen, here they are, Beastie Boys. Kids!
This is such a throwback for me, just so you guys know. I was 16 years old when this happened. Fond memories. 5:30. I need to hear them say the word one time. And then I can switch it up. How cool are these guys? It's pretty cool. You know? How long does it take to get to Okay, more of that later, maybe. But you should totally watch that video, because that video is great. And they're great, and they're cool, and I like them. Okay, let's share the presentation. Hang on real quick. Get to the presentation. I think it's here. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that? There's a chat window. You can do Q&A, or you can do, there's a chat thing under more on your kind of black menu bar. So if anyone has anything they want to say, if anything gets weird, or if you have any questions or follow-up thoughts, by all means, jump in. My intention with these lectures is basically to have a good time. Oh, I gotta chat and see if it's good. Sorry. We can see, good. That's good, right? That's a good thing. You can see the presentation, is that true? Or we can't see? Now I'm nervous. Yes, okay, this is good. I like affirmations. Anyway, my goal is to share things that are useful to you and fun, and to keep it pretty tight, and to just basically show you how this online learning thing works, because I know we're all doing a lot of it. I've been doing a lot of it for some time now, and it's taken a while for everyone to sort of get into it, or even understand it, or appreciate it, or what have you. And I don't know, it's kind of fun, and I think it's I don't know, let's have a good time, right? Like let's use this platform in the way that it's meant to be used, and see how sort of effective it can be. But really, you didn't come to hear me talk about platforms, so let's talk about fun and unusual etymologies. So first off, what is etymology? It's a noun. And here's the definition. It's the study of the origin of words and the way in which their meanings have changed throughout history. So basically, how did we get a word is the idea behind etymology, the origin of a word and the historical development of its meaning. So an etymology can be about the grander study, or just about an individual word. Today, we're going to talk about individual words. I think I've got 5 of them in there, and they're just the fun ones. They're interesting ones, and they're real. Like this is how the word came to be, and I think that's kind of the coolest thing, is that it's a crazy story, and the story is true. This is actually how we got the word. I'm going to share the etymology of etymology, and I thought that was kind of clever. The bad news is it's a really bad etymology. It's as boring as they can get. This is taken from Merriam-Webster, which I'm actually going to talk about that website in a second because I love it. Etymon means origin of a word in Latin and comes from the Greek word etymon, meaning literal meaning of a word according to its origin. And the Greek etymon in turn comes from etymos, which means true. So I think the most interesting thing there might be the true part, that's the origin of etymology. Basically, like, what is the truth behind this word? Where did it start from? But in terms of etymology, it's very much on point, which I appreciate. And it's nice that a word has a really on point etymology, especially the word etymology, but not a very interesting one. So let's get to the better ones. Here are my sources. I always use the merriam-webster.com website for my definitions. I love Merriam-Webster. I really do. It's just a great website. I've been using it for years. It's very lame, but I think of it as m-w.com in my mind. I use it pretty much on a daily basis. The website's great, and I highly recommend their word of the day emails. I've been getting these for a decade or so, maybe longer. It's always great. It's a nice thing to sort of wake up to. It's very low key, way to start your day, way to start thinking about the world, basically. It's cool. I mean, like, words actually are so fascinating, right? They're the sounds we make that we all agree on mean something. So it's cool to just have that as a start for your day, a thought that gets you going. Just like, let's jump in and learn about this word and where it came from and why it might be interesting. For synonyms, this is unrelated. We're not using synonyms today, but I can't help myself because I love this website. I freaking love thesaurus.com so much. I thought it was Roget's. I thought it was like related to Roget's. I couldn't find any backing intel to support that in the 45 seconds of research I did. It might actually be Roget's. I'm not sure, sorry. Anyway, thesaurus.com is incredible for synonyms, just really deep and rich in every sense of the word, and it's really precise. And as a writer and as someone who likes words, again, it's freaking fantastic in one person's opinion. And between those two sites, you're pretty much set, except for in English courses in college when you really have to use the Oxford English Dictionary, which is a pain in the butt, but you have to do it. So sorry for you. And for me. Okay, let's get into the actual words here. So we're going to start with this guy. I think that's a really, really good 18th century, mugshot or, author photo, basically. I think he's looking good. I think he looks like he's got personality. I picked that one out of a few different ones. That one was the most sort of dynamic one. I think he's a dude. I think that he's like, he means business. And he did mean business. His name was Luigi Galvani. And if you ever want to wish him a happy birthday, the day to do so would be September 9th. He was born 1737. So this is, a little bit of history. Doctor of medicine and a researcher at the University of Bologna in Italy. Although I don't think Italy was Italy then, because I think Italy came to be in the 19th century. Sorry, this is like classic, like half-baked knowledge of mine, which I should know that better, but I don't. My bad, and I probably should not have brought it up since I only half know it. Anyway, this guy, he electrified frog legs, and this is how his name came to live with us in English for basically the rest of time. So he was studying anatomy, right? Electricity was the other movement of the time. And in his lab, he had batteries and other things that held electric charges. And he noticed that if he had a scalpel that had been sitting near a battery or a table that had been charged, and he touched a leg in a certain place, the leg would twitch. And so he described that and he called it animal electricity. So basically he had this concept that nerves were triggered by electric signals, and he was right. That's actually was true. So he did electrify frog legs, but to good ends. In 1791, he published a paper called De Viribus. This is my Latin, Electritatis in motu musculari commentarius. I never studied Latin, except for one day with one 8th grade Latin student. And I did learn a little bit, but not a whole lot. The translation of that is commentary on the effect of electricity on muscular motion. And this was sort of his hallmark paper. And it led to this word, galvanize. So Galvani became Galvanism, which is basically the study of how electricity triggers muscles, and then became galvanize as a verb in English. And one other fun thing about galvanism is that it really was this, not just it wasn't, it was more than just a scientific principle. It was sort of like a philosophical idea, this idea that electricity underlied life. We're in a period of time when people are starting to think differently about life. And actually, one of my later slides goes back to the past when we didn't think as sort of freely and as openly and as investigating deeply what is actually happening beneath the surface of our existence. And so there was this idea of galvanism, that electricity was part of our sort of makeup. And Mary Shelley ended up getting really interested in this, and she discussed it with her husband, P.B. Shelley, and with Lord Byron when they were having sort of a badass romantic literature reunion. And she was so inspired by it that she ended up writing Frankenstein, based on this idea of a guy who could come to life via electricity. So Galvani's kind of responsible for that. Like, thank God that scalpel was sitting near that battery, because that basically led to the concept of Frankenstein. Pretty cool. Here it is, the actual definition. It's a verb, obviously. To subject to the action of electric current, especially for the purpose of stimulating physiologically. That's the very literal definition, galvanize a muscle. And then the second one is to stimulate or excite as if by an electric shock, an issue that would galvanize public opinion. And this is how we use it now. Like, we're electrifying frog legs less, and we're trying to galvanize public opinion more. There we go. There's our first word. Let's do the next one. Okay, so the clue for the next one, the sort of starting point, is our fate is written in the stars. And this is the one I was talking about where, it's sort of a blast from the past, an old way of thinking. Once upon a time. And this is specifically, I think this is probably dates back to the Middle Ages, but I'm specifically referring to the 16th century. The position of the stars in the sky was blamed for both good and bad fortune. So basically, you could be born under bad stars, under good stars, and those things determined your status in life, essentially. The stars were linked with fate. So if you start in 16th century Europe, and you get this pejorative prefix dis, meaning ill, and you add on astro for star or planet. Together, those two parts of the word make up disaster. So basically, a disaster is something that happens under ill stars. It's just something you can't control, but you are left to deal with. It's so interesting. That's, you're fated in a way to have a disaster. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something you can avoid. And I think we still use it that way. Like, Hurricane Katrina was a disaster and there were human contributions to it for sure, but the hurricane was going to do its thing, and everyone who was in the way was just in the way. So basically they were, under bad stars, under, cursed stars, basically. Here's the Merriam-Webster portion of this. It's a noun, a sudden calamitous event bringing great damage, loss, or destruction. Yeah, there's Hurricane Katrina for you. Natural disasters, broadly, a sudden or great misfortune or failure. Can be a little bit more metaphorical. And it's, how common is the word disaster? And did you know it comes from stars? I bet you didn't. The party was a disaster. Good sample sentence. And everyone's been at one of those parties before. Okay, and then this is kind of interesting too. I included this, the obsolete or occult definition, an unfavorable aspect of a planet or star. So you can think of it that way too. Okay, so next word comes from the names of two towns, Nîmes, France. France. Is that how you say it in France? France? Yes, I don't know. I learned how to say je ne parle pas le français. That's my best French, and all it means is I don't know French. And one time, quick story, I was on a train platform in the middle of pretty rural France. Like, I was going to a pretty obscure spot, not a tourist spot at all. We were like 2 trains in from the Mediterranean, and this older couple came up to me. Sweet older couple, probably in early 80s, and asked me some innocent question. And I actually look French. And in fact, I actually technically am French, even though my parents told me I was Irish and Italian. The genotype told me I was French. Anyway, they thought I was French. And they asked me the time or something innocent like that. And I turned to them, and I was quite well practiced at this time because I'd been in France and it was the only thing I could say. And I just said, je ne parle pas le français, you know, and like it was, again, better than that. But basically, like someone, imagine walking up to someone in America and saying, hey, do you have the time? And they were like, oh, I don't speak English, you know, in like a perfect American accent. And they had the look on their face of like, go F yourself, buddy, you know, and they should have. Anyway, that's my quick story from, where was I? I don't know. I was somewhere I was in an obscure town in France. Okay, moving on. So this town, the town of Genoa, Italy, they made pants from an affordable cotton textile, and they were very popular, like workman's pants, basically. And this other town, Nîmes, France. Oh my God, why do I keep saying France? Nîmes, France. Okay, thank you. They produced a serge fabric that was called, well, serge de Nîmes. They eventually, the French, tried to make the pants from Genoa using their own fabric, because the fabric, the Genoese fabric, was like a little bit cheaper than their fabric. The French, obviously, you know, they're sort of what's the right word for this that will not insult anyone who's French? They're a little bit like snobbish about their you know, their cultural artifacts, and they wanted to make these pants better. And so they used the prototype of the pants. They also pronounced the town Genoa as Gen. My French is terrible. And then they used their own fabric, and putting those words together, they ended up making denim jeans. So the fabric was denim, and then jean is the name of the pants. So they became denim jeans. Sad thing about denim jeans is they're not in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I challenge you to find it there because it's not there. The good news is we know what they are. They're those guys. Those are denim jeans, right? Those are 501s. I think I got those. I think those are Levi's 501s, which are, you know, that to me is the quintessential jean. Also, one thing I learned in doing this research was that the thread, the way that you make jeans is that you weave in a dark thread with a white thread, like an indigo dyed blue thread. And on the one side of the pant, that's the sort of accentuated thread, but there is still a little bit of the white. And on the other side, it's mostly the white, but then you see a little bit of the accent of the indigo dyed thread. So if you look at a pair of jeans, on the outside, it'll be blue, mostly blue, with a little bit of white. And on the inside, it'll be mostly white with a little bit of blue. Also, more fun facts on denim jeans, because isn't that what you came here for? The indigo threads, they will lose their dye, and they actually have white on the inside. And so eventually the jeans will fade and become basically like whiter. And that's the effect that, you know, wearing a pair of jeans for a while will have. Okay. I got two more here, I think. A ball of thread as a tool is sort of the starting point here. So there's this guy. He's my favorite guy from Greek mythology, Prince Theseus of Athens. He's just a badass. You know, he's very brave, and he gets stuff done. And he's not too much of a jerk about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big Hercules fan, because Hercules, I think Hercules had some, I don't know if he was purely human. I feel like Hercules had god blood in him. Like, was he Zeus and a human's child? But Theseus was a man. Like, he's a dude, and he was very brave, and he accomplished his goals, and he's always been just sort of my hero within these stories. Anyway, that's not that important, really. Anyway, here's one of those stories. He volunteered to be he's from Athens, to be the seventh boy out of 7 boys and 7 girls who were to be fed to the Minotaur in the labyrinth. So basically, the state of Minos and the state of Athens had this arrangement where Minos would not attack Athens as long as Athens would provide these 14 children to be fed to the Minotaur every 9 years. So the time came for this to happen, and Theseus was like, send me in, Dad, send me in. I want to be one of the 7 boys. And his dad's like, no, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. This thing will eat you. And he just insists. Theseus insists that he's going to go, and he does. So the night before the attack, Princess Ariadne of Minos, she gave Theseus two things. She basically pulls him aside and she's like, let me hook this up. She gives him a sword to kill the Minotaur and a ball of thread, and more on that in a second. In the morning, Theseus goes to the labyrinth, and he makes the other 13 kids wait by the front door. He basically says, you guys chill here, don't go anywhere. And then he ties one end of the string to the door and walks into the labyrinth carrying the ball of thread with him, and the sword, of course. Finds the Minotaur, slays the Minotaur, and then follows the ball of thread that he dragged with him back to the front door, because the other problem is when you're in a labyrinth, you need to get out. Labyrinths, I've been in a corn maze before. I don't know if you guys have done those. And one time I got through it really, really easily. Like it was, maybe like a 12-minute affair, and it was kind of a lot of fun. The second time took a little bit longer. It was more like a 25, sort of 30-minute affair. A lot of dead ends, a lot of like recriminations, blame, doubt was sowed, and it wasn't a lot of fun. And so basically we did get out, obviously. My point is that labyrinths are scary, and it really makes a lot of sense to have a ball of thread with you if you're going in one way and coming back out the same way. So this gave us the word clue. He used the clue, the ball of thread, as his clue. So it's a homophone. The clue was the ball of thread, but that was the clue that got him out of the maze. And that literally is the origin of that word, because he did that. I mean, he didn't really do that because there probably was no Prince Theseus, but that's the origin of how we got the English word clue, which is pretty fun. It's a noun, something that guides us through an intricate procedure or maze of difficulties. And I really like that definition too, because it's so on the point. It's so on, like that's exactly what he was using it for. So makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Okay, last one. So a conspiracy of French boots. So we're going to start with sabot, which is a wooden French clog. I had no idea there would be so much French pronunciation when I started this. You know what I mean? Like I thought there, I would have said, yeah, there'll be one or two French words in there maybe, but it's been me speaking French all day long, and as you can tell, I'm no good at it really. Spanish, I can do Spanish just fine, but French, je ne parle pas le français. Right? Okay, so sabot is also the name for the part of a railroad that holds the rail, the metal part, to the rail tie, the wooden part. So there's rail, tie, and then this sort of like shoe. It's basically a shoe, and then you put the railroad spikes in basically to hold the rail to the tie. And it's essential, right? I mean, like the rails are great, need the rails. The rail ties are great, levels the whole train, but if you don't tie them together, you got a big problem. So there's two parts to this etymology, and I'll actually start by telling you about a false etymology. Some people say that this word comes from people who would, French workers who would take off their sabots, their boots, and throw them into machinery and basically break the machinery. That's not true. That didn't really happen, apparently. I think they might be getting confused with the Luddites. The Luddites were basically these people who rejected modern technology, and they would sabotage their other people's looms. They would go into these factories and like throw stuff into the loom and make it not work because they wanted to loom by hand, apparently, because the looming by hand was the wave of the future. People don't like new technologies very much, but you know what? If the technology is better, it'll take hold. That's how it works. But anyway, not important. These are the two parts of this etymology. French workers, this is from the late 19th century. People who were protesting their labor conditions, they would drag their shoes and basically like intentionally work slowly, and you could hear it because they're wearing these wooden clogs, and so you could like hear this rhythm, da-dum, da-dum, and so that was like, oh, this is the sound of people working slowly intentionally. That's the first part of it. And that's actually the origin of the word, but it became popular when in the early 20th century, French rail workers would intentionally try to slow rail travel by removing sabots from the train tracks. So basically like making the rail, and I don't think they would remove all of them or anything like that, but remove enough of them that the train tracks would become more unstable and the trains had to actually operate more slowly. Those two uses of this French boot word sabot earned us the word sabotage. So that was that Beastie Boys video that I can highly recommend. Sabotage comes from sabo to sabote, which means to intentionally work slowly, and then turns into the English noun sabotage. This is so specific and so on point with what we were just saying, but destruction of an employer's property, such as tools or materials, or the hindering of manufacturing by discontented workers, destructive or obstructive action carried on by a civilian or enemy agent to hinder a nation's war effort, an act or process tending to hamper or hurt, deliberate subversion. I think we use the third definition more than the first two definitions these days. That to me is what that, my mind thinks of those two things as sabotage, but it comes from these earlier things, like a more technical thing and a more like labor organized action. That is it for today. That's my lesson. Did I hit my mark here? I haven't been watching the clock. No, what time is it? 5:54. So I've been going for 19 minutes. No, 24 minutes. Oh, I went over. I meant to do 15 minutes. Sorry, guys. My goal is to limit it to 20 minutes. I went 24. My bad. I got a chat here. Yeah. Thanks, my dude. That's great. That was what I was just trying to do was Coach Steve from Big Mouth. If you're not watching Big Mouth on Netflix, obviously we all have lots of Netflix time available to us. If you haven't seen Big Mouth, I highly recommend it. Thanks, my dude reminds me of Coach Steve, which is very welcome. All right. Well, tomorrow we're doing math. We're going to do exponential growth. So I will see you guys at 5:30. And thanks so much for being here today. I will see you mañana. Bye, guys.